Do not attempt to adjust your computer. There is nothing wrong. We have taken control as to bring you this special show. The Mothership flies through cyberspace one more time. My name is Toby Maxwell, also known as the King of Uranus. My distinguished panel, Greg DeGuire, is here. He knows everything about everything. There is nothing getting past him. Also, our Millennial Falcon, officially turning 21 in all 48 lower states and half of Canada. Jerry Turner, happy birthday
fully developed
to
this
you.
week, so.
And she's gassing up some liquor over there. We're not exactly sure what it is. I think it's NASA
apple juice.
Apple juice, as we say here. And to my left, the distinguished guest, this is episode 2. Anita Meyer is here, also gassing up alcoholic beverages. We've been eating Oreo double stuffed cookies too. So if our teeth look like hillbillies, you don't want to know what it is. We took a break. Anita, welcome back.
Thank you.
Your first episode is absolutely fascinating. I mean, the stuff that you get into is something that people wouldn't just walk around in the library and say, "I want to talk about that." So let's dig a little bit deeper because you piqued Greg's interest, and that's.
I will never take your stonework for granted ever again. Oh, sorry. But we were talking about the Templars, so we kind of ended last episode, and I find them to be fascinating as far as where they could have gone with their plunders and trying to save
these are a group of people, just for the people.
Yeah, the Templars were the poor knights of Christ, right? So they were along for the ride. So people from Europe who wanted to visit the Holy Land, which is Jerusalem, they all wanted to see where Christ was crucified. So to protect them on their pilgrimage, these guys were hired more or less as bodyguards, more or less.
Just like the ghoulish human nature. They want to see where he's born. We want to see where he's crucified.
Well, that was the Holy Sepulchre. That was a big deal to see, because I don't think. Was the church built then?
I wasn't around.
Well, there's a church built on the site now.
We could Google it.
But I don't know if it was there. I don't know if it was there at the time of the Crusades. I guess I don't remember that part. I wasn't there for that. Anyways, that whole story with the Crusades and everything else fascinates me almost to no end. So I think it's interesting that the tablet that you were talking about could be talking about the Ark, and how could that have gotten there? There's only a few possibilities, and one of them has to be entertained as the Knights Templar. And I think that's it. I think that's interesting. Well, I mean, what do you think?
I think that the Knights Templar, Solomon. This all goes back to Solomon. Solomon had a library in the temple, and when it was destroyed, they said that the Gentiles and the Knights Templar came in, and that's what they were looking for. They were looking for all that knowledge. And it said that Solomon had all the books on the science of creation. And that also included mathematics, building schematics, routes, trade routes, maps of the world. All his routes that he went to the land of Ophir, which is the land of gold, which is thought to be the Americas. And so the Templars were looking for all this information, and so they might have found what they were looking for. These texts, these ancient texts of Solomon, and this is what they follow. Is the Freemasons today? They follow those building schematics on all the buildings and monuments that they build.
Well, the term. So if you're talking with someone and they'll say, "Really, on the level?" On the level is a term for that, because they used to use the levelers to make sure everything was right. That goes back. That's a Freemason term. Mm-hmm. Same with giving someone the third degree. That's a Freemason term, because their highest number was the third degree, and now it's a 30. Now it's a 33rd or something. But at the time, it was the third degree. There was a couple. There's a couple Freemason terms.
What about the finger?
Now
Did they come up with that too?
Only if it's level, then yes.
Solomon did.
Yes, if it's a level finger, then yes, it's.
That's it. Okay, as you're saying, Anita.
So I think that they found ancient maps too, that were routes to the Americas where Solomon found gold, and so that's how they possibly. It's a theory that how they might have ended up at Oak Island in Nova Scotia.
Now the map to the Americas. Now what? So what year? What year was that? I mean, the Americas hadn't been found yet officially. I mean, it was 1492.
We're talking BC, way BC.
The Crusades were what, 1200-ish? So we're talking 200 years before America was officially found as far as the record books go. But there was all kind of maps. Are you aware of the Piri Reis map? Mm-hmm. That's the map that shows almost an aerial view. I mean, it was done that good, of the entire east coast of the U.S., Central America, all the way down South America, and there's no way that map could have existed at that point in time, yet it existed. I mean, they
Right. It's
had
supposed to be a copy of even an older map.
Rand McNally did it.
Yeah. But some of these were, I thought they were supposed to be in Alexandria, but then, of course, every city gets sacked and the stuff gets moved elsewhere. So I think it's interesting if they had that map to navigate. I mean, I think that's interesting. I mean, that's speculation, but still, I mean, with the kind of knowledge that they had or the ability to get, I mean, they could have gone anywhere, theoretically, of course.
And there is also theory and speculation that they took treasure out, that they found treasure under the Temple Mount area, and even some theories on the Ark of the Covenant. And they took them on ships and they sailed to the Americas.
Now, I've seen specials where some say that they think the Ark of the Covenant is here in the States, that they took it that far away to make sure that nobody ever found it. I don't know. It's hard to say.
But I don't believe it's still there, and I think it was put back where it's supposed to be, under the Temple Mount.
You think it's back there now?
Yes.
What leads you to that? I mean, why? Why do you think that?
There are passages that are found in the Oral Torah that say it's in the woodhouse. Jeremiah put it in the woodhouse.
That's where I put it.
Of the
Your woodhouse is in the backyard somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
In a much shorter hole dug underneath that.
underground, where the old temple stood.
Huh.
Very
Curious.
deep underground.
Well, that's the thing. So the thing is, why is the Ark important? Because it would prove that it's all real, right?
Correct.
That the Ten Commandments were real. I mean, that's proof. So if somebody finds the Ark, that means that the Bible is no longer just maybe stories passed down or speculation. That's going to be proof solid that that's real.
Okay, time out for 1 second here. And again, there's always been a conflict of who believes and who doesn't believe.
Right.
I think humankind, a lot of times assumes that the God figure is the all-authority, one God over all the universe. I don't mean to be disrespectful or sacrilegious. What if the God that runs this part of the planet where we are is the assistant manager? You know, is the district manager. I'm not being funny when I say that. He's the guy that says the commandments and everything and talks to Moses and everything like that. But he's not the big guy. He's only part of the big picture. Is that a possibility? I think it is, and everybody thinks I'm crazy, but it's okay. Take a number. Get in line. Thoughts on that?
Yes, I have. I explain in my book.
Which book?
All my books really contain the same information.
Okay.
I recap over it in each.
Same stuff, 4 covers. Good deal. Way to back there.
Yes.
It's like Taco Bell. They just put a different shape on it. They call it
This is not a taco. This is a chili.
a flatulito.
This is a burrito.
If people don't like this cover, they'll pick that
We'll
book
pick
if they
this
like that
cover.
cover.
Same. Oh,
What is the band name?
you're a good marketer,
Flatulito.
Anita. I like you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But in my books, what I reveal is that, getting back to the spiral form,
Correct. Okay.
and there in the Oral Torah, a description is given for what the actual Ten Commandment tablets look like. And they're not what Cecil B. DeMille depicts them as, where they are brown sandstone tablets.
They look like headstones, really, is what
Yes.
he depicted them as.
Yes.
But Moses would have had to carry both of them, so they couldn't be huge because one guy's got to carry them.
If you read in the Oral Torah, it tells you that they were actually sapphire gemstones. And that the Hebrew letters were carved within them and that they actually floated. And you can see them from one side to the other.
Excuse me.
Gesundheit.
Sorry.
Bless you.
Take 2. I need it. Thank you. I'll take the blessing.
So, well, Mel Brooks had his History of the World. These 15, and he drops it. These 10 commandments. I mean, it's all fascinating. It's all just utterly
Assistant
fascinating.
manager blesses you, by the way.
Thank you. You ever notice a sneeze? It's when they get God bless you. Any other bodily function? Nothing.
Well, do you know why they say that? Do you know why they say that when you sneeze?
Because you get your eyes closed and your heart stops.
No, that happens during the days of the plague, where if you sneeze, that meant you were days away from death, so they blessed you automatically when you sneeze. That's where this comes from, and you're welcome. I'm saying that's what it comes from.
What do I get for indigestion? Nothing.
Maybe it's trying to say that God loves you.
I don't believe in God.
Even
I
though-
don't. I'm sorry, Anita. I'm not fighting your books. I'm not. My grandpa told me you should explore church now as a kid because one day you're going to wake up and find there's no pie in the sky. It's all BS. And I hate to say it, he was right. I woke up one day. It's like this is all. I used to believe in Santa with all my heart.
I
found
still
out that
do.
was crap. Used to professional wrestling. I thought it was real. Found out that was crap. Same thing with God. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying you're wrong. That's what I feel.
I never thought you would compare wrestling to God.
It is. It's mythical. It's put on for us.
Austin 316. I mean, it's all
That's
right
maybe
there.
why I'm here today.
Maybe you are here to win us over. And one thing we've always done, and we joke with the rest of them, we don't disrespect anybody.
No.
But I think that what we were trying to say is we're open to all answers. I think
Yeah.
the only answer I will accept is I don't know. That's the only answer I'll accept from anybody. You have theories. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Can open you to a whole new world that you never thought you'd
I mean,
be interested in.
Her
and I
books
think it's
have
awesome.
her books have opened up my line of thinking.
Exactly.
I mean, not necessarily to believe in, and I'm not a religious person either, but I don't disrespect those who are religious.
I don't either.
I find religion extraordinarily fascinating, though, because it has a deep history. I mean, where it comes
Great
from.
potluck dinners.
That they do. Church bingo, I mean, where you go. But still, the history of it is fascinating because it all leads to world history and how people act the way they do. It all goes back to the formations of ancient religions. I mean, it's part of history. It's part of makes people who and what they are and why they believe in what they do. So you can't really discount it, but I mean, you don't necessarily have to believe in it either. What about, are you a religious person?
I grew up in the Christian church. I don't know what denomination it was. I really can't. I think evangelical. I can't pinpoint it. I believe, and then I don't at the same time, and I don't know how to describe it. I want to believe in something, but I try not to let it. I don't know how to explain.
Reluctant agnostic. I look at that. I want to believe. And you
gotta see it to believe it.
You know your vegetables. Little Greggy down there on Earth ate his Brussels sprouts, so he's going to get a little
Only covered in cheese, by the way.
chili bean. And again, kudos to you, Anita, for digging into it and taking it deeper than most people do, because it changed your thinking, didn't it? You said you were a skeptic.
I just feel
It
bad
changed
that I
your
didn't read any of the books before we had an interview like this, and now I want to dive into
Now
it.
we got to get her back again.
Who's going to play Greg in the movie? That's what I want to know. One of the Wayans brothers, I think, would be
I need to work on my tan.
Bonzo Wayans. Okay, go ahead.
Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Yes.
I mean, all right. So going back to the Ark for a moment. I mean, it's a significant piece of. It's a historical artifact. I mean, and I don't think. I mean, the story was, and that's where they put the Ten Commandments in the Ark and brought it around. That's right. So there were stories that the non-believers were stricken dead by the Ark. I mean, what do you make of that? I mean, do you believe that it actually has the religious power it says, or some kind of wacky static electricity, or is there some other scientific explanation for the mystical powers of the Ark? What do you think?
Well, there's scripture, and if you read into scripture, you'll get a good idea. It says that the tablets were carved from the footstool of God's throne when he descended down on Mount Sinai. Mm-hmm. And so if you're thinking that's from another God's throne, that's maybe another, possibly it throws into the theory of another dimension. And then if those tablets are from another dimension, they have a different atomic structure to them. Kind of like Superman's kryptonite, maybe. So I believe that it's that nothing else powered the Ark except for those tablets.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe there are meteorite fragments too. I mean, if they wouldn't know what a meteor was, they would think that it's coming down from the heavens, that's from God. Do you know what I mean? So that's why religion is tricky, because it's hard to know what exactly were they seeing. I mean, if they just saw something that they didn't know how to explain, which is how they thought religion was. So if they saw a UFO, they would think it's angels coming down from the heavens. So it's kind of tricky that way, in my opinion, anyways.
Right. What books were these found in, too?
They are known as the Talmud, the Mishnah, the Oral Torahs.
Okay.
The Torah, Moses came down with the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, which is Genesis through Deuteronomy.
Right.
But he also came down with the Oral Torah. It just wasn't written yet. It was just understood knowledge. So the Oral Torah seeks to explain the science behind the Torah. So if you'll find, it will tell you, like in the Torah, that you're supposed to do so-and-so, like you're supposed to circumcise a baby boy on the 8th day, but to find the way, the rules to do that, or how to do that, you have to look to the Oral Torah. That gives you that gives you the instructions for how to do it.
They did that in an episode of MASH. They did a circumcision over the phone from a rabbi that was on an aircraft carrier.
I got it when I was 28. That wasn't good. Now, have you heard that? Okay, here's a theory. Thinking about, we talked about this before on one of our broadcasts. Mm-hmm. Allegedly, America is in Iraq with war because a lot of artifacts are buried over there. We want to have a reason to be over there to dig. And one of them could be the Ark of the Covenant. Do you think there's any truth to that?
My theory was the whole war is a cover, right? So the military is there. They're not really doing anything, but they say they're at war with all these insurgents, but nothing's really happening. The whole thing is a cover for an archaeological dig because Iraq is that's society. The ancient Sumerians, that's all right there.
The home office.
Because everything has been clouded with war for that area since its inception. What if there's some truth that somebody found something that links something to some mystical event that has yet to happen, and they buy into it, and they go to war, but it's just a cover to dig up all this stuff?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying how else? If you were an archaeologist and you wanted to dig up an ancient Persian and get artifacts, you can't do it now. That's not possible, but you can if you're the American military. You put a fence around everything and declare everything a war zone. Nobody can get in but you. What else are they doing? Bin Laden supposedly was found. What the hell are they still doing over there? If they come up with another new terrorist group every day. Well, now it's ISIS. Who's going to be next? They just keep coming up with all this stuff to come up with a reason to stay there. When is enough going to be enough? Or if that's not the reason why they're there?
I think they're there for ancient technology. The Sumerians are noted in the biblical scripts as the fallen ones that mated with earth women. But they also are, if you read about them, the giants in the book of Enoch, it says that they taught us great technology.
They did indeed.
They gave us science, metallurgy, weaponry,
video games,
medicines.
What was the name? The giants had a specific name now. That name is escaping
San Francisco.
me. No, and not Brooklyn either. The Nephilim, yeah. Now, they were supposedly from another planet that was in this solar system. I've talked about this before, Planet X or Nibiru. Now, I don't know if that's mentioned in the Bible per se, but that's where they say they came from. But a lot of that had to do with the 2012. Like, the planet Nibiru was finally going to come back around because it was on a really odd elliptical orbit. At the time it would come back, this was their time to re-show themselves. Supposedly. But the Gregorian calendar, as we know, is way off because at the time they made it, they didn't have daylight savings or leap year. So who the hell really knows what year it actually is? Difficult to say, says me. But that's why I find all this absolutely fascinating. Because again, all you have to do is find one piece that links it, and that makes it all true. And it was one of the Crusades. That it was one of the Romans. One of the Caesars, I forget which one it was, but it was his wife that she thought she had a piece of the true cross, and they made that their battle cry. They brought that with them to every time they went into battle. They carried this piece of what she thought she had a piece of the true cross with her. So religious artifacts drive war because they feel that it gives you the divine right to rule. Hitler thought that he had the spear of Longitus, the spear of destiny. That's the spear tip for the Roman guard who jabbed Christ in the side to prove that he was dead. So that spear supposedly exists in England now, I think. I don't know if Germany still has it.
I have Adam's fig leaf in my freezer.
Adam, is that true?
No, not Adam. Not our Adam.
Okay.
The original Adam.
Even
For a small fee.
even the heads of the three wise men are reported to be in a German museum, like the guys. If any one of this stuff turns out to be true, again, that proves it all. And that's a big moment, and I mean, isn't it? I mean, if something links all this to be 100% proof rather than just stories passed down. But that's why years ago the Dead Sea Scrolls are in the Milwaukee Museum. Did you ever have a chance to go to that?
Yes.
What do you think of that? I mean, because here's the thing: the biggest argument is who wrote all this stuff, right? Who wrote the Bible?
I'm going to stop you right there, and for people, I always worry about viewers, PG. The Dead Sea Scrolls, let's back up in case someone hasn't heard of that. What is the Dead Sea Scrolls, and how were they discovered?
Go ahead, Anita.
They were written by the Essenes. And
Who are?
The Essenes were the healers of the Jerusalem society. They always wore white, which is why the good guys in Westerns always wore white, which is why nurses and doctors wear white, because they're known as the healers. Mm-hmm. It's also interesting because Jesus, if you look at most of his early renditions, always wore what? White robes, which would theoretically make him one of the Essenes.
Thank you.
That makes a big difference because that leads to the conspiracy that I'm not done yet. That leads to the conspiracy that perhaps Jesus didn't die on the cross. If he was a member of the Essenes, he would have had access to medicines, right? So you put him up in the cross. He dies on Joseph of Arimathea's property, by the way, as a relative of Jesus. They bring him down. Oh my God, he come back to life. But maybe he wasn't dead in the first place. It's just a theory.
They're just drawing pictures of him, an artist rendition. They haven't. It would have been a Jewish, dark, Middle Eastern looking man, not like a member of Journey's tour bus like they show
I'm
when
just
you see
saying,
him.
I think it's
that
interesting
feminine looking guy with the feathered 70s hairdo.
And he's got really ripped abs too.
Yeah, exactly.
But the point is, it's interesting that they would draw him that way, anyways, because it's important that the Essenes only wore a specific color. So it's interesting that they made him wear that specific color robe. Again, it's just
Thank you, Human Encyclopedia. So,
and continue.
they were found in the caves of Qumran, which is a desert region in Israel, and they were found by a Bedouin.
A bedwetter?
Bedouin, a goat herder, sheep farmer.
How many of
And
them
by
were
the
there?
way, the Bedouins know where everything is in Israel. They know.
live out in
bacon,
they live
ham.
out in it. They live out in the sticks. And I've got for those of you who probably can't see this, it's a book on the Dead Sea Scrolls that I got when I saw them. Not only did they have the Dead Sea Scrolls there, they had bits of the actual ones, but they had really old Bibles there too. Some of the earliest written forms they had there at the museum too. Even if you're not religious, it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
But they weren't even the originals.
No,
They were just replicas.
they were replicas, but they were still really cool. But again, it goes to who wrote it. So if these were not copies, and these are written in Aramaic, and that was the language of, well, they were the language of Jesus at the time, but in a specific part of Jerusalem. So it's interesting that if the Dead Sea Scrolls were original and they were written in Aramaic, that meant that somebody wrote it at the time that he was alive, and everyone thought that maybe this stuff was written years after, because the Bible wasn't put together to 325 at the Council of Nicaea. So you got to figure 300 years between stories is a long time. I call this, anyone who's seen Fast Times at Ridgemont High, I call this the Jeff Spicoli theory. Spicoli walks into Mr. Hand's history class and calls him a dick, right? By lunch period, the whole story has changed that he threatened his life and pulled out a knife. I mean, that story changed 4 times in 3 hours. How much has this story changed in 300 years? I mean, who's to say? But finding these things legitimizes everything that they wrote down in the council, because these weren't found until obviously after the Bible was put in print. So this was found afterwards, so that legitimizes that. So you can speculate that if that's legitimate, that other parts of it maybe really are true. I mean,
It's dated at, the Dead Sea Scrolls are dated at 2,000 years old.
that would bring it back to the time of Christ. I mean, if everyone follows modern day calendars anyways.
They took the Book of Enoch out of the Bible, but it's found in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. I mean, there's a whole book called the Gnostic Gospels. Supposedly these are left out. Then Mary Magdalene had her own thing, and there were
Gospel of Hank.
There were bits and pieces that they thought maybe didn't lead to the. So it made Jesus more of a real person and not so much a Messiah. Those parts were taken out, supposedly, to keep him on a pedestal, not to make him more of a human. I mean, that's what I got out of that. I'm sorry, I'm taking it away from you.
We got to land this mothership pretty soon.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
before we do that, thank you for being... Anita Meyer is our guest. We highly recommend that you get her books.
Oh, yeah.
How can you get your books, Anita?
Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com,
Okay.
author Anita Meyer at Wix.com, Dragon Eye Publishing. I even have a YouTube video. You can find me under Anita Meyer Author.
And we're going to link all this stuff up on our
will do
website.
that in the links
Absolutely will do
below.
that.
Yep.
Yes, count on it.
Just Google me.
That is
I
what she
haven't said that
said.
in a long time. We're the Mothership Connection. Thanks for being here, Anita. And I know that we all say we have fun with our guests. We don't make fun of it. Your work is stunning. It is interesting.
Yeah, very.
Go check out the first episode that Anita was on. She cracked the code. It's fascinating stuff. We do appreciate it. I hope you come back again. when your next book's coming out, anytime? What is there an estimated release date for it?
No, not yet.
Okay, well, you're going to be back on one
To be determined.
For our legally 21 Carrie Turner from Millennial Falcon. Happy birthday, Carrie.
you.
Oh, and I want to say special hi to Tammy. She's standing with.
Thank you, Tammy.
Say hi, Tammy.
We
It's been
appreciate
a fun night.
Tammy's Carrie's chaperone. They're going right to Chuck E. Cheese with Adam. Adam's going to buy Carrie her first beer.
Right.
At her
Because they
birthday.
serve that there.
Because they serve that there. And the Chuck E. Cheese, exactly right. Nita's going to have another Pop the Cork. Greg is here. I'm Toby Maxwell. We are off like the bride's panties. The mothership flies one more time. Thank you for watching.